Once in a blue moon, something so extraordinary will come out of nowhere and hit you so hard that you can't stop thinking about it. It's something that displays such a phenomenal sense of relatability and quality that, in a way, it completes you. Because that's what happened with me with Season 4, Episode 3 of All Hail King Julien, Who Arted. Now, for those of you who don't know already, I love this show. It's so smart and funny and emotional. I've seen All Hail King Julien in its entirety about 6 or 7 times, all 6 seasons, all 78 episodes. But the one episode out of all of them that stuck with me the most was Who Arted. This episode is at the pinnacle of not only the show, but cinema in general. Who Arted is the greatest piece of animated television ever made. It's that good. And today, I'm going to run through it with you guys, as well as proving the hidden genius behind it. So the episode starts with, let's just call it an experience of some sort. So Clover and Maurice find King Julien in his hut, where it appears that he has inflicted extreme pain on himself. But of course they quickly realize that it was just the pomegranate juice from the pomegranates. And then he proceeds to mention that he has been eating his feelings again. Why? Why would he say this? The answer is simple. This is All Hail King Julien. Nothing makes sense on the outside. So Julien is obviously upset about something. What else is new? And then we are told that all that Julien ever wanted was to be a great artiste. And then after some classic All Hail King Julien talk, we flash back to this art show that provoked this. It's going really well so far, but by God is it about to become something else. So Julien decides to present his latest piece of work to Mo and Chloe, which turns out to be a slightly horrific painting of himself with a six-pack, tentacles, and horse body from the waist down. Oh, okay, so it's a self-portrait. Well, that's nice. As Clover and Maurice are trying not to throw up while also complimenting Julien on the painting, the rest of the kingdom begin to start crowding around something. Julien, Maurice, and Clover go over to see what's happening, and as they reach the front of the line, Julien sees an identical painting to him, but in a more fancy outfit. Gosh, that moment was hilarious. It turns out that Mort created this painting. Surprise, surprise! I was laughing so damn hard at this point, but then the music switches, stopping me dead in my tracks. This dramatic orchestral music almost immediately changed Who Arted from being a comedy to a drama. This is when Julien's jealousy first kicks in. He tries to change everyone's opinion on the painting, but the kingdom stands firm. I also just want to point out that this episode frequently goes between Julien, Clover, and Maurice in Julien's hut after the events of the whole episode, as if Julien's telling them about what happened from his point of view. Anyways, okay, where were we? Oh, got it. So after seeing Mort become real famous and beloved because of his painting, Julien gets so desperate that he decides to get Mort on his side so that Julien can have his work spread and loved. He attempts to do so by having Mort over for dinner, and then afterwards he can show Mort his latest painting, which Maurice and Clover are apparently terrified of. So Mort goes to dinner and he takes some of his artsy friends, which are Ted and Dorothy obviously, and for some reason Gigi and Sage as well. I find this scene to be a great mix of both comedy and drama. So Mort is pumped that Julien is going to eat dinner with him, and Mort sees this as him finally being appreciated by Julien, whereas Julien is only doing this for his own personal benefit, but the others tell him to be cool and to not seem too desperate for anything. That sounds pretty nice, right? But this is when Dorothy first says the line, "Everyone wants what they can't have." Okay, well, that's a pretty thematically appropriate line. Maybe it'll be significant in some other way in the episode. Mort takes the strong advice, and to cut it short, the art gang ditch Julien to go to this art gallery thing, leaving Julien to be even more jealous of Mort. He is so determined to upstage him, so he decides to break into the art gallery and plant the painting there. So while he's doing that, Clover and Maurice try to fit in amongst the crowd and pretend to be art critics, which goes south in a really well written and funny as scene where they try to give nicknames for themselves. I think I brushed over it in my All Hail King Julien review, but man, I love this scene. There is just so much to love. And then Julien presents his painting to the kingdom, which is just as bad, if not worse, than the one that we saw at the beginning of the episode. And the crowd reacts just as expected. But then Julien brings Mort into this and gets him to critique it. But for some inexplainable reason, Mort made the painting actually good when he threw up all over it. He turned this disgusting and vile piece of garbage into something magical. Everyone crowds around him, once again celebrating this somehow beautiful piece of art that he has created. And that's when Julien's jealousy is brought to a whole new level. Something in him was so enraged that he made all art illegal. He forcefully collected everyone's artwork and threw it all away, careless of anyone else's opinions. Julien asks Ted and Dorothy if everything had been accounted for, and the two of them accidentally break it to him that even though most of Mort's pieces had been taken care of, all of the art that they hadn't located had gone way up in value. Julien surprisedly reacts to this, to which Dorothy says that line again. Everyone wants what they can't have. That's odd. Well, by hearing this statement, Julien bursts out and commands Clover to kick down every door until all art has vanished. As he storms off, Maurice comments something to him about being like his uncle, who was a ruthless and terrible king, but Julien is gone, mentally speaking. He sees red. He goes home to find a bunch of protesting posters about Mort, and that brings out the final trigger. Julien goes right up to Mort's house and puts him on lockdown then and there. He has made Mort trapped, literally. Now we are at the point where, for the first time in the show, Julien has felt truly alone. Maurice and him just had argued, Clover was having enough of this, and Mort had been robbed of his passion. But Julien sees all of this magnificent artwork that has been made with him as a key inspiration, and instead views it as an insult that he doesn't have that skill. He blames all of his ruthless actions on art, but in the coming days and nights, he gets corrupted by horrific nightmares. One night, he wakes up from a dream that he had regarding Mort destroying him with a paintbrush. He gets out of bed and goes for a walk in the middle of the night. He begins to question that maybe he was a bit too hard on Mort, but then he sees it. More of the posters, everywhere, surrounding him, controlling him, and then one of the posters tears off a tree and chases after him. Julien doesn't even have time to breathe, everything feels like it's enclosing on him. He holds the poster, terrified. It's like Mort's face is trying to get him to confess something. Mort's face that Julien had stripped from him finally sent him to tears. He breaks down in the middle of the jungle, surrounded by the posters that have scared him to the point of traumatization. And as we fade away, that continuous line lingers in my head. Everyone wants what they can't have. This episode spoke to me on such an emotionally powerful level. Julien's jealousy of Mort and his talent slowly begins to grow more and more as time passes, eventually leading to him taking away everything that gave Mort happiness. Not a single moment is wasted or unnecessary, and yes, there are the occasional vomit moments, but all of those vomit moments have actual purpose. Take the painting fiasco. When Julien presents his painting to everyone at the art gallery, they all hate it, but then Mort throws up on it, and the vibe changes. Everyone feels compelled by this daring artistic piece, and Julien doesn't understand that. The whole point of this vomit was to show that we have been given the mindset of Julien. We don't understand why this vomit painting is a masterpiece, but the rest of the kingdom does. But then I slowly pieced together as time went on that that was exactly what the episode wanted me to say. All of these little bits and pieces throughout the episode all led to that beautiful, emotionally phenomenal scene with Julien and the posters. And I didn't even initially know why at that moment, but I started to cry as the camera faded away out from Julien breaking down in tears. And now, I understand why this episode feels so special. Julien wanted to be an artist so badly, but he just wasn't good enough. He tried so hard to be loved for his work, but instead, Mort was the one that was given all the talent, and he couldn't accept that. Me personally, I've experienced this exact same thing, where I wanted to be good at something or have something in particular, but I just wasn't cut out for it. And this episode brought back all of those emotions. Thank God it ended on a happy note, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to think about this episode without shedding a tear. Who Arted is an overwhelmingly dark and bleak examination on the effects of jealousy and mental heartbreak. It is by far the best episode of animated television and one of the greatest works of art I have ever seen in my life. Please don't ignore this one because of the fact that it's from a TV show about King Julien. If you have a spare 20 minutes, and I know you do, please make this that 20 minutes. Who Arted? Trust me, is phenomenal.